Welcome to Fated, a podcast brought to you by Magella and Carly, two romantically obsessed readers who believe that great books must include declarations of undying love and deep thrusts of desire. Diving into the spicy, smutty fantasy genre, we are here for both the rattling of stars and headboards, and our podcast starts with the worlds of SJM, but delves into other realms. Did we mention that washboard abs and wands of all kinds are welcome in this inclusive and magically charged space? No topic is off limits, and no one is forced to have only one favourite heroine. Welcome to Fated, where we are unabashedly and wholeheartedly hot and heavy for spicy fantasy fiction. It's time to sit down and smut up. Warning, spoilers ahead. Hi, and welcome to Fated, the podcast. My name is Magella.
And I'm Carly, and we are really excited to be back with you recording this episode for Iron Flame Part 2. So we have released another episode, Part 1. Please go and have a listen to that if you want to dive into the first half of this epic book and just really hear our thoughts and our feelings as we go through some of our favourite scenes and we share our opinions about this epic book that has really taken the fantasy romance world by storm. So go have a listen to that. We're going to dive into part 2 in depth today. So first up, major spoiler alert again. You've got to read it all. You've got to be done. You've got to be totally done. But I'd love to know, before we jump in, always, we want to know what each other's reading, because we haven't seen each other for 2 whole days, and that usually means Magella's read a whole series. So what are you reading, Madge?
So I have been influenced again by the TikTok algorithm. And there was this woman whose video I watched who was just so compelling, saying that there was this book that is just totally underrated and she didn't know why. And it needed to become this author needed to become viral. And anyway, she talked about it and she showed the front cover, which looked like an old Mills and Boon thing, and she was like, this is honestly maybe the worst cover I've ever seen, which I think is maybe why it is not getting any recognition or hype, but the author is really well known, always in is really, it's called The Winter King by C.L. Wilson. I don't know if you can see that on there. See up here, this is the
yeah
it's like this,
I get a sense.
Yeah, dusty pink, sort of like a photo that may have been retouched to almost look a bit like a painting. But she was she was like, if you loved Sarah J. Maas, if you loved Iron Flame, this is better than those. And I was like, whoa. No, it works it can't be. So I haven't really gotten into it. I'm only into page 5 because I started it last night. I bought it the other day, but then my Kindle declined because I didn't have funds on that particular card. And it was only $3.99 on Kindle, which again would normally, without a recommendation, make me feel really hesitant because I think, oh my God, $3.99 for a book. How can it be any good? It can't be that long. But she was so adamant that there will be no regret after reading this book. And I was like, okay.
Is she the author?
No, she's not the author. She's just a reader. I don't know. I don't think the author is on. I think the author might be a little bit older. I'm not sure. I'm just making these things up now. I should Google who C.L. Wilson is. The Winter King. The Winter King.
And I just showed it. If you're watching our video on Spotify, I just showed you the cover in sort of all its glory, and I get it. We probably need to also do an episode on covers and what captures, because I'm looking at that going, oh, as well. I looked at some ratings already on Goodreads, and people were like, first things first, do not let this cover mislead you. It's better than that. This is an actual world-building, character-developing, son of a bitch novel that I fucking loved. So
great review. I would read that on that review alone.
All really pretty great reviews. And, it is that classic. They're the kinds of covers, maybe not with the fantasy element, but they are the kind of covers that I remember my mum reading with her Danielle Steele's and her Mills and Boon. So maybe we could do a little crowdfund for CL Wilson and get her a cover redesign, and then she might be massive. That's fun, and it's number one. It looks like in a series or something. So, okay, enjoy that. I'm still in Air of Fire, but I am well in, and it's now picking up real pace. So this is book 4 in the Throne of Glass series, and I get now why people like just, keep going with Crown of Midnight, keep going, get to Air of Fire. It starts to really accelerate. So we're meeting lots of new characters, and it's very, very exciting. So I'm very into it. But we are now on school holidays, so the interruptions are many at the moment. So we'll just keep going with that. But anyway, that's fun. The Winter King, I'm guessing a little bit different to the Never King, which you read a little while ago.
Haven't we both read that now?
We have both read that now. I'm still not sure how I feel about the book.
For sure. That one needs a definite trigger warning of like, be prepared to, if you are at all protective of your fairy tales, maybe don't go there.
No, it was fine. It's all good. I'm okay. I've recovered. And yeah, let's dive in. Iron Flame Part 2. So, where have we left off? What happened at the end of Part 1 was something I don't think we mentioned in the last episode, which was...
I think so. When all the cadets were given, so Violet let Dane touch her and showed him the memories of what had actually happened. Mm-hmm. And then he communicated that. I think we did speak about that because he was a very trustworthy source of information because he wasn't rebellion child of the rebellion, and he wasn't he was well respected and everyone knew that he followed the rules and did the right thing. So he kind of said, this is what's happening, and then everyone was given the option, since they had been betrayed and were basically not being told the truth, that they could leave Basquiat and come and join the rebellion and move into Rayorson House, so Xadens' house, which is a castle, because he's a prince. But it's sort of glossed over. It's just like, oh yeah, we're just going to move into Rayorson House. It's just a little thing, but it's a massive property.
Well, I didn't even connect that he was the prince and that he would someday be the king. Like, I didn't even connect that when they called it Rayorson House. I was just like, oh yeah, now I look back and go, that's of course. But when you're reading it as you go and you're excited about other things going on, there's so much you can skip and miss. So yes, they got the choice to go with them or not, and most of them did, which is exciting. But as they then flew out and they landed, what I was also thinking about was how we didn't mention that, like, Mira meets Brennan and discovers that Brennan is actually indeed alive, which is hilarious because you might think that they're going to do this big, lovely reunion and she's going to be so over the moon and give him a big hug, but she actually just knocks him flat on his ass.
Which I think is a very warranted reaction, especially from, a soldier and a rider. And she just communicated in that moment, how betrayed she had felt, that, he didn't tell her, didn't trust her enough, didn't bring her in. So.
And I just think, gosh, all the Sorrengail women are just badass, aren't they? Like, poor Brennan, in a way. He's got these 3 absolute warrior women in his life.
And the dad, it sounds like the dad, if it is Violet's real dad, but he seemed very soft. He was the scribe. I feel like in that relationship, it felt like General Sorrengail was the alpha, in a way. He was the kind of off in the clouds, a dreamer, a writer, researcher, loved the words, loved the storytelling of history, seemed soft and safe.
Yeah. And again, that's a major theme throughout both these books for me, was that we need both. So we need the warriors, we need the badassery, we need the people who go out there and defend the borders and kill things. And we also need the people with the smarts and the intellectual, prowess, I guess, the people who are going to write history and not write history, but,
Well, they
Document.
literally did write history.
Well, they did.
Their own version of history.
We don't want them rewriting history, but documenting history and also knowing how to go back and find information and access what's needed in the end to really save them all. So that's a major theme that I really loved throughout this whole series thus far. So they're at Rearson House. Mira and Brennan are going at it. They've had their little stoush, and I really love how it goes straight into a beautiful sex scene, an intimate scene with Xaden and Violet straight in, like page 338, straight into it. And she's still recovering, from the torture. So, it's a great scene. Highly recommend. 338, 339, 340. There's so much going on. I don't feel like we talk enough about the fact that they can speak to each other telepathically.
Yes.
I just find that so freaking erotic and hot. It's like a next level intimacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you feel about, there's elements of like, get out of my head, I don't want you hearing what I'm thinking. But mostly, especially when they're having sex and he's like sending her messages, like, do you want this? And she messages back, I want you feral. Oh,
I feel like sums up the energy of most of the like fairy smut that we read. It's like underneath it all, we need the Batwing. We need something a bit unhinged. That's what we're seeking. Like, where a man is like fully tapped into his like primal, animalistic sort of nature. And so feral, because I told my partner and he was just like, oh my God, what? Men don't want feral. What are you talking like? Because feral can sound, I guess in Australia especially, a bit bogan. Like it sounds like, oh, you've gone feral. It's like you've gone a bit not in a good way. You've become unbalanced. And I think that feral in this way means, well, I read it as, it's there's nothing else except this primal sort of, very focused, like the world comes in just to be about this moment, these two bodies, this energy, the desire, the lust. It's like nothing. Like it's almost like he can't control himself. The men can't control themselves in that moment because they're overcome by their animal nature.
Yeah. Well, these kind of words like fuck, fuck, fuck. He tugs at my hair. His breaths come faster. You have to stop, Violet, or I'm going to lose it on you. And I'm not sure if I can be gentle. And she says, lose it. I don't want gentle. It sounds excellent to me. Yeah. So primal is probably the word there. But that is a great scene. And I think it's at a really good point in the book where, yes, she's been tortured. She has been mended as well. But it's a chance for them to reconnect. And for me, it was like, okay, she's trusting him again. There's that seed of trust is there again. It's blooming. She's going with her primal urges. She's listening to her body and following it. And we're here for it. We're all here for it. So there's a bit of cheering. I got a bit flushed in that scene. That was a great scene. So if you're looking for something fun to read, go straight there.
Yeah, and I also think it was as much for our own resolution. Like the whole part one had been such bickering and frustration and like tension between the two of them, and not like this good tension, but a lot of her fighting the love that she felt and like I don't want to feel like this, and I feel betrayed, and him being like, I'm giving you space, but I'm also away most of the time because the people want to punish us and also try and stay alive while everyone else is being picked off around. It was just a lot of the heaviness of their situation. And I think that obviously if you watch the TikTok videos as well, like I guess the fever for this book is driven by the love story. We're not there. Like if you took the love story out and it was just them training in Basquiat and then leading the rebellion, it would still be a really interesting story, but it just wouldn't have that sort of kind of obsession energy that comes because people want to either be Violet or they just want to have Xaden or they want the connection between the two, or they want that. There's this
Yeah.
It's so compelling and
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we've talked about this. We will continue to talk about this, about why we're obsessed. And again, it is we are taught as little girls that we want the prince on the white horse to come in and save us and rescue us, and also sweep us off our feet and only want us. Like that's a storyline that obviously is now embellished and has shifted in that our female main characters are a lot stronger. They're not just weak little things, sleeping in a glass cage. But I think that is in most of us that read these books and love these books, is like, we do want the man that's going to come in and literally destroy the world to save us, to have us, to um, put us on our own pedestal, to see us shine, to put us forward. And that happens in a lot of these books as well. So, yeah, I think that is absolutely a must. And I mean, like, listen to this. She puts a pillow over her mouth, like over her face, just to muffle her screams, and he throws it away. I want them to hear. I
even
want.
though we
Yeah.
find out later that he's already like soundproofed the room, but she doesn't know that.
No, she doesn't know that in that. And she's like, there's hundreds of people in the palace. He's like, and I want them all to know that you're mine. Oh, Zayden. All right, we must move on, or I'll just stay on this page for the whole episode. What else happens?
Well, and Dana wakes up, so that's
Yeah.
exciting, because for the first half of the book there was a lot of fear that something was wrong in her deep sleep and that Violet had caused her to be damaged or to not have the growth that she should have been having as a young dragon because of her stopping time to try or to save Violet at the end of the book. And so I think there's a lot of relief there. And also, and Dana has like a really light, sweet, and now a bit more sassy energy that sort of balances out the heavy, serious energy of Tarn and Siegel, who are very like, we're old dragons, we've seen it all. You guys are like minutes old. You're testing our patience. Whereas Andana's a bit like, this is what's happening. Like, I want to be here. It's really cute. So that she wakes up, and then Violet goes off to the Viscount, the luminary, to try and get this to do so that he can see her power, so that they get something. And she goes secretly, and Xaden was like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to use you as a bargaining chip. We don't know. But also at that stage, Violet doesn't know that one of the reasons is that Xaden was engaged to the Viscount's daughter, and he knows him quite well, and he probably knows that he was, going to be manipulative or untrustworthy, or motivations weren't necessarily pure.
Someone said, one of the characters said that the Viscount likes to collect things. So there was a sort of a sense that he might keep her as one of his, toys, trophies.
He has done that before with many people. And she spoke to a couple of people there saying, what he made it so that I didn't want to leave. Like, it was so good here. What he offered me was so good, which I'm sure would be different for every person. But it was really interesting, and Kat was there, and it was all very like, there's dresses and there's that kind of female competitiveness, but Kat has that signet ability to enhance emotion. So then Violet, who was already feeling probably slightly insecure and jealous and unsure of herself, because she has always, I guess, undervalued, like, she's never, I guess, the same as most of our leads, they never see their beauty and their strength and their uniqueness and their ability in the same way that others, especially their love interests, they don't see themselves the same way. So I think that she went in, and Kat, is beautiful and confident and sounds like she's got resting bitch face, and it's just, like so intimidating, and then heightens all these emotions that are already there. So that's when we start to get that kind of hate relationship with Catriona, where we're just like, oh my God, like, because why is she doing this? And she's being,
what is your issue, bitch?
That's right. Clearly doesn't want to be with her. And so, yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And then Violet did that whole demonstration of her power, where she was in the amphitheater and she had to use the lightning, and there was the box. And then inside the box was a venom. Isn't that what happened?
Yes.
Yes. And then
And Zayd, because Zayden wanted to go down with her into that amphitheater, and the Viscount said, no, you have to stay up here. And like, that was an intense scene.
Yes.
And then, and her, tell me if I'm wrong, but Mira and Brennan were there too on the field at
Yes.
some point. And so the Venom, when the Venom are released, they could just touch the ground and everything dies.
And because they draw all the power
They
from
draw
it.
the energy and the power. So she had to scream at her brother and sister to get up onto the steps. And then she had to face that Venom alone. And we're still at a point where she can't really control her powers. She can't kind of draw on it at will and control where it goes. She's still a loose unit with her lightning. That was a very full-on scene. I was like, even though you know that it's obviously she's gonna beat it and she's gonna be fine, the writing is still so great that the heart is in the throat. Like, what is gonna happen here? Yeah, very cool scene.
Also, I do think there is always a tiny part of me that is like, it's not going to be a main character death, but I feel like there's certain authors. I mean, once Rebecca killed off Liam, I felt like no one really is safe, and it wouldn't surprise me if in the middle of that, when you're just thinking, surely it's just going to be a tough battle, and then suddenly like Mira dies, you'd be like, what? Like,
True.
Can't you? So there is this part of like, I know that it's going to be okay, I think, but there's also a little bit where I'm like, but other people, are they going to be?
I know. It was like Mira and Brennan have just reunited. Is she now just going to like kill off one of them? You had each other for 5 minutes, and that is it. Yeah, absolutely. That was really terrifying. And oh my God, just the way she describes the venom, it's just horrendous. Just really scary. I'm actually a little bit scared if they create the movie, and I have to watch I'm a little bit scared. I think I'll be watching it.
Have you watched the Harry Potter movies?
No, I haven't.
Because you didn't read the books.
No.
That's
But
okay.
there's a couple of Marvel movies I've been to where there's some really dark characters, and I'm easily scared. I'm very sensitive with visuals.
Yeah.
Ugh, some of those people I see and see when I close my eyes, I'm like, ugh. But yeah, the Venom. I've seen some fan art of what people think that the Venom are gonna look like in movie, and scary. But anyway,
I was like, especially since someone we know became one.
Yes, someone. Yes,
we know very well. Anyway, so now everyone's starting to work together. They're being brought together to work together. So the Rider cadets meet the Griffin cadets. So essentially the two groups of riders. So the riders that were outside of Basquiat that Xaden was secretly helping and giving weapons to, so that they could protect themselves against the venom. And so now they're working together, and have kind of created this new school at Riorson House. So they've got, because a few of the professors came over, so they've set up classes, and they're doing similar things, working together to learn how to ride and to how to train and all these kind of things. And there was a really interesting scene, which I didn't expect the person to die, but when they were doing that climb and they were doing the training climb, and it was just really tough, and especially because Violet's small, and and the Griffins couldn't use their magic or fly or something because of the wards or the lack of wards
and the altitude
yes, all that kind of stuff. And so there's these two groups of people, because everyone's been split up into sort of quadrants again, but now each like quadrant has half Basquiat and half Griffin. So you're kind of asking two families to merge together and then straight away go in to do these very precarious tasks or trainings, or
it's a 12-hour journey, that walk. So they have to get back, to get all the Griffins and everyone back, they have to go, it's called Madaro Pass. I just looked it up again because I was like, what's that called? And 12-hour journey where they have to hike. So the dragons are patrolling around the place flying, but the Griffins can't. And there's heaps of Griffin traps on the walk, so it's going to be dangerous. But I was thinking, like, it's like going on a 12-hour hike with people you hate. But if you don't help them and they have a misstep and they fall, they could take you so precarious. Anxiety super high. I mean, I don't hate. I love going hiking with my children. I love them dearly, but I think about even an hour hike of them whinging and complaining and fighting, and that's enough. So yeah, that was a huge scene. And I can't even remember the poor person that died. What was her name? Anyway,
I think it was like
um,
it wasn't Nadine. It was like
no, something close to that though, but it probably doesn't matter.
Nadia.
Who?
Was it a Nadia?
Well, I'll keep looking, but it also it really made Kat hate Violet even more because she perceived that Violet didn't help save that rider
Yeah.
when she was falling, whereas actually she did, and
And
pretty
then, yeah. So everyone tried to help because their quadrant's very tight. Like
Yeah.
the riders they've all like, you know, gone through so many trials, but by the time they get here, they know each other really well. You know, they've got that sort of like unspoken language where they do reach out and help. So Violet devised a plan, but unfortunately, both of those riders, her and the one that died, were little.
Luella.
Luella.
Luella fell. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of Kat's. So she felt really like she hadn't been able to protect her. There was all this kind of, I failed my own team, but also I couldn't have done anything. Violet was there. She could have, but
and Violet nearly died too. Like she was hanging off the side of that cliff, hurling her body down trying to catch her.
She dislocated her shoulder or her elbow or something as well, you know, because everything pops out so easily with her bones. So I think, you know.
You see her? And then they have to get scream for Brennan to come and save Riddick, who was going to bleed out as well. So, gosh, I forgot about that major part of the book. Because griffins die with their flyers, don't they? So if their flyer dies, the griffin dies.
I think so because they're smaller animals and the power is like they don't have enough to survive without the rider. Like they become too entwined.
Yeah. And then like straight after that, wyvern turn up. So then they're having to go out and try and fight that, which ended up being, remember when Violet went out and she worked with the clouds and she worked with Tan to kill them. And it worked, thank goodness. But again, we're seeing her growing in her power, growing in her control a bit. Like every time she tries to use her lightning, she's sort of getting a little bit more focused on how it works for her. I really love that part of these books, like how their magic system or their signet works for them and how they wield it. I think that's really cool. That keeps me very intrigued throughout the story as well. Okay, then what happens?
Well, then there's a little bit of repairing happening between Dane and Violet as they work on the journal together. So there's this kind of there's that kind of war plan that's happening and the assembly and Xaden and the professors from Basquiat that have come over. They're all kind of planning the strategy of the war, like with weapons and outposts and the wardstone and what's possible. And Violet's coming at it from the scribe angle of like, what information are we missing? There's got to be things that are in this journal that can tell us what to do rather than us just like trying to win by brute force, which will be very unlikely because for every one venom, they needed like 6 riders to be able to bring them down. And so, and if you get 3 venom together, there's some, like the power would be too much. And it's like, so the more venom that are together, they also become much harder to kill. So I thought that was interesting. And then because they're doing all that training together now, and there's so much animosity after this climb, they have that thing where they're all allowed to have it out on the mat like they used to, the challenges. And obviously Kat picks Violet to have the challenge, and then she uses her power, which is not allowed, and makes her insanely jealous and, brings out all those emotions that she's feeling. And so she almost kills Kat, because she is so enraged and, she's a good fighter now. She's very good with daggers and And that would be the last thing that she wanted to do, because even though she, potentially does feel like she doesn't like anyone that's been with Xaden, and especially someone who still seems clearly wanting to get back with him. Violet's not, she's never been about unnecessary bloodshed. She's always about
Yeah.
how can we solve this without killing, without using weapons, without losing people or putting people in pain. So that was actually a really cool scene to read, I thought, because I felt like it was really obvious what she was doing, but I also felt all those feelings that Violet was feeling. Like, I was just like, I feel this. Like, oh my God, this woman, like, she does deserve a little bit of a punch, like maybe not like a knife through the heart, but, like, she is just really, she is asking for it.
Yeah. Was that the time when she was saying things like, I've been with Xaden, I know how he feels on top of me?
Yes, and like that thing that he does with his fingers, I taught him that. Like real specific.
I know what he tastes like.
Yeah. I think she was like, you will never be the queen he needs or something. So she was bringing in that feeling, like that whole, like, I come from a family of power as well. Like, I understand what needs to happen. I'm strong enough. You're just a little girl. Oh, like, you're so easy to break, essentially. It was really
funny because I was like trying to connect to that part. I think we all have that part of us, like, that would want to say some of that stuff maybe to our ex's new partner. Like, like there's a part, if we're all really honest. And so I was like reading that, connecting to that, going like, how fun would it be to play the bitch? And if you're still angry, yes. Which, sometimes it's like, I want to be the bad girl. I want to be the cat and say some of that shit sometimes to people. It's fun in fantasy world to go there and go, how would I do that? Would I do that? And tap into that part of us. The other really cute little thing that I love happening around this time was Sawyer starting to have a crush on Jacinia, the scribe, and wanting to learn how to sign so he could talk to her. And I really love how Riddick just gives him so much shit. Like he was going to teach her. Sawyer's like, I should have learned years ago. And Riddick's just like, no, he says to Riddick, you'd teach me the sign for sex and tell me it was hello, wouldn't you? And Riddick's like, nah, I'm not a total dick. I would have waited until you asked about the word for dinner. And that way, when you asked her if she wanted to go grab a dinner with you, those two are funny. So I do like those little bantery moments as well in here. There's still a lot of really cute humor throughout what seems like a very harrowing, awful, tumultuous kind of thing going on in their worlds. There's still these really fun things, like when Tan, starts to tell her, well, I'm a black, morning star and I've been around for this many years, and Violet just goes, yeah, and rolls her eyes. Like, I love those little moments too. Just keeps it a little bit lighter as well.
Yeah.
And they also have the scene where they have to learn how to use the magic to create the runes.
Mm-hmm.
Where they have to, like, that was so interesting to me. Again, how does someone come up with this in their brain, in their imagination? Like, how they had to pull, as a writer, like, I'm just fascinated by people and how they create up their magic.
Well, I think there's lots of mythology, like, because I've been reading up on, and watching
what runes are
about, how you come up with plots, and also when books start to be similar, and people start to claim plagiarism and those kind of things. And it's actually like, and then I watch these videos where people say, well, sure, we could claim plagiarism, but we would have to say that the first author or the one you're trying to defend actually plagiarized, Nordic mythology, which is where all these concepts came from.
Yeah.
So I feel like, a lot of this is like the runes and the word marks and the things we've read about in Akatar and Throne of Glass and the magic systems, like they're, big parts of them have been drawn out of mythology and folklore and really old fairy tales. So it'd be interesting to know how they first began, because it's
But it's also, I just think, to take that and then put your own spin to fit it within a plot line to make it work and be plausible. I just think it's very clever. And I do know everything comes from everything. Nothing is original really in this world. But I really loved that, like learning about how this works in this story and runes aren't just decorative, they're strands of magic pulled from our power, woven into geometric patterns for specific uses, and then placed into an object. And I guess my brain still doesn't quite get it, obviously. Maybe I need to go to Basgiath College and learn, but or Reason House. But I could picture, that was such a vivid scene for me. I don't know if I could really picture them doing that in how she wrote. I think, again, the great thing that is that Rebecca writes enough detail for me that I can picture it, I can feel myself there, I can really get swept up in the story, but it's not so detailed that it's monotonous and tedious.
Yes, I totally understand that. I feel like I might have glossed through that. I don't remember thinking, yes. So, I feel like there's definitely, it's so interesting. Different things obviously appeal at different times. If I reread, I wonder if that would stand out more. But I think because I've read the whole Throne of Glass series, and there's a lot of like heavy, complicated sort of subplots that to do with word marks and runes and magic, symbols and there's twists within that and people using them in different ways. I think when I was reading Iron Flame, I was a bit like another complicated magic. I was just like, skip. Yeah. Cool. I was like, that's right. They're finding runes. They're going to have to do something with these runes. Oh, I just don't really care about this thing right now, And then I feel like the next scene was when they were doing an exercise together, and Solus shows up in that cave, which is Varish's dragon, and obviously Varish has died, but his dragon has still survived, the one-eyed dragon, and just killed some of the group that is there, and he's trapping them in a cage, and then in this cave, and then Andana shows up, and she kills Solus, because which was something that I was just not expecting. And so suddenly Andana has gone from this little fluffy golden, thing that reminded me of a kitten to like a full, they call her a dragon slayer, which among dragons is terrible, but that she's not punished for it because she was saving her rider. The riders were ambushed in the cave. They hadn't gone after Solus, but it was just that whole scene was quite intense. I remember because they all had to work together, and Kat, Violet was like, just go. She told everyone just like leave. So Kat sees that, she is really a good leader, and she is loyal, and she she is very protective. And then on the next line on this plot summary that I've got written down is like, and then we go back to Violet and Xaden, who are having more trust issues. I feel like that's like a little kind of like plot point that you could put in like every 5th or 10th line. More trust issues, complicated, annoying, heavy conversation, no sex, moving right on. It's still like,
it's so interesting because I see a lot of people online like, oh God, like the trust issue, she needs to get over it. And I think as a therapist in my real life, it takes a long time. It takes a long time to rebuild trust. Give her a chance. It's only over the space of one book. And I don't even know, like, is this book just over like a month or 2 months?
I think it would be a couple of months, because
for a break,
it's definitely not easy.
Everything in her world was turned upside down. Everyone lied and betrayed her. Like, give the woman a break. Anyway, it's quite funny because I kind of find myself yelling at, in my head, yelling at people online who are like, oh, just get over it.
I mean, and I feel like he keeps dropping. She is justified. I think she's also justified in having these trust issues because she is so smart, and because she notices things and listens to people and reads things, she keeps discovering things that he has not told her, or has told her a partial truth, or told her a misleading distraction so that she wouldn't focus on something else, or wouldn't feel betrayed by that person. Because the next thing we find out is that she was told by Sloane that if you bond to a dragon that's already bonded to someone in your past, in your family line, that you will either go insane or you'll be given a second signet, a second power. And so Xaden had, Xaden's grandfather bonded to Seagull. So he has bonded to a dragon in the same family line. So he didn't go insane. He must have a second signet, which then Violet finds out is that he's an intrinsic, which is where you can read minds, and usually they're killed instantly, those people, because they're so
so powerful.
Exactly. So literally no one else knows except for the dragons and her.
So did you pick up on that when that clue was dropped?
I think when that clue was dropped, I knew that he would have a second power that would be, so I thought he might have something similar to Dane, where they touch you and you can see things, or he might have something where he could manipulate thoughts or erase memories, because I felt like a lot of the theories that had been floating around during the Fourth Wing era were that Xaden and Violet had already been together, and that's why he said, I will always know you, or I've always known I've loved you, or something. It's like people's theories at that time. He can erase memories, and they've already been together, and he's just erased memories, so he knows, and they've been together for years, but she doesn't know, or something like that. Or he met her when she was a kid, when they were both kids, or something. So there was all these theories. So I felt like I didn't guess that he would be an intrinsic specifically, but I felt like with that clue that it pointed to the fact that he must have a power that needed to stay hidden, or wasn't necessarily like a power that was a power that could be used very easily for bad or for manipulation.
Okay. Well, you're clever. I didn't. I just kept reading, and then I just went, I didn't even connect anything when that was said. It's just like, there's another bit of information in this world that I'll just, need
But
later.
I think in the book, it was literally written that Violet couldn't do anything with that information. Like when Sloane told her, it was like Violet couldn't do anything with that information in that moment, so she filed it away to think about later.
That's what I was like. I just filed it away, and we'll think about it later when Violet does. I also stay right out of any online theories and stuff. So, because I think for me it does plant. Then I find I'm starting to look for things in my books. Anyway, side note.
I think we've got it on our list to do an episode about the theories and if it impacts the reading, the quality of reading, or the outcome of the reading. Because I do feel like, especially at the moment, because there's lots of theories with Sarah J. Maas's new book, the third in the Crescent series, that's coming out in January. So lots of people doing rereads of the first two, and there's lots and lots of theories now. Because you don't know, so I won't say anything, but certain things happen in the Crescent City which have kind of opened up these new possibilities, and people are trying to guess. And I watched something yesterday where I watched it, and it seemed so accurate. I was like, oh my God, if that's true, then I kind of feel like I've lost that huge reveal. Like I will achieve it. And normally it doesn't bother me, but I think because there is so much effort that goes into reading the Sarah J. Maas universe, like the ACOTAR and the Throne of Glass and the Crescent City, and Sarah has said that they're all connected in some way, but obviously we don't know how. But that was the first time when I went, actually, you know what? I think that these sort of theories are starting to take away my potential enjoyment of the gasp out loud moments, or the, kind of thing. So I think I'm just going to start scrolling past those.
Yeah, I think you should. Because I do, because it feels like a minor spoiler, because I'm like, well, that could be totally off and incorrect, but it also could be correct. And then it's a bit like, I won't gasp with, oh my gosh, I'll just go, oh, that's confirmation.
And I think that some people really, the reason why they're so appealing is, people want to know, like they don't want to have to wait for this outcome. And it's kind of, and it's also, I guess, comforting for some people that they can work it out. And And some people love that whole, as we were saying yesterday, people do spreadsheets and graphs and, family trees and they really delve into the nuances and the logistics and all the heavy information aspects of the books. And I feel like you and I both are more about like the sex scenes, the love story, the
Hey,
beautiful
hey, I
scenery.
love the runes. I like the magic
Yeah,
system.
a good fight, like a bit of intrigue and betrayal for sure. But it's all governed by emotions. Like we're not sitting there, going like, oh my God, I feel so fulfilled by this book because I realized that particular line connected to this particular line.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
doesn't, we're just like, oh my God,
We
that paragraph made me feel incredible.
Yes, I like to just be. I like to experience the book as I'm reading it. I don't want to experience it through everyone else's theories first and then read the book. But yeah, we will definitely do an episode on that. So we need to really spend a really decent amount of time talking about the throne scene. So
Does
that's
that
where
need its own episode? I mean, we're starting to get up to like an hour already.
well, this is kind of off the back of what you were saying before about the fight between Kat and Violet on the sparring mat. So Kat gets in Violet's head so much that yeah, she literally snaps and has the opportunity to kill her on that mat. And so let's bring some context into the throne scene because we've got Xaden beside that mat talking to Violet in her head. So good, such great writing. Talking to Violet in her head about like he actually says, I honestly don't care if you do kill her violence. So Xaden's voice filters through the rage that holds me with the same unbreakable grip I'm using to choke the life out of my opponent, who's Kat. I honestly don't care if you kill her violence, but you will. So he's trying to reach her, put the power in her hands, like you do what you need to do, but trying to also reach her rational brain to say, how will you feel afterwards? Because as you've said, Madge, we've pulled this out so many times, she's not malicious. She doesn't want people to die, even if she hates them with, the heat of 1,000 suns. And he says, I respect whatever choice you make. So there's this silent conversation going on between him on the side of the mat, her on the mat, choking Kat. And then she screams, get out of my head. And she says, I don't want to kill her. I have to let go, but her hands can't. So with that rage, she can't control the rage. She can't control her signet. And so she pulls her hands eventually away and then she sends him a message, I need your help. And he's there, like Xaden is there, arms around her, lifting her to her feet, and taking her off to the throne room. Ding, ding,
I mean,
ding.
it's really just that one line that sums it all up. Like that line is just iconic.
Yeah, it is. And if you've been anywhere near TikTok, BookTok, fantasy romance world, you'll have seen it in graphics and videos and audios and people just going absolutely feral for this scene. So he takes her off to the room. So she doesn't really realize that that's his throne, right?
No, she hasn't.
No. And like, just, oh God, I'm just trying to get to it. So we're on chapter 48 if you want to go back and relive the moment. You love me in spite. That's one of the many reasons I will always choose you. He drops to his knees in front of me and works the laces on my boots with quick, efficient movements. What are you doing in here? We can't, she says. And then I just love, like, there go my socks. Like, that's just... And I was like, thank God the socks are gone because I hate sex with socks. It's not good.
No.
We can do it in here, he says. It's my house, remember? These are all my rooms. And then he says it, my house, my chair, my woman, punctuating each claim with a flick of his thumb, popping button by button free.
Yeah, it's a great scene. And also it's like it shows that he's willing to also, like, there's so much symbolism in there. Like he's on his knees she's on the throne,
Yes.
you know, like there's the power thing of like, I will bow before you. I will get on my knees before you. Your pleasure is more important than like my power in a way. Um, and plus there's that whole like claiming aspect again. Like it's in this massive open space. It's in this really symbolic space. It's in the room of power. It's like where you lead from. It's like the head of the house. You know, it's like it's happening here because I choose to, and what I choose is to put you on the throne and give you like pleasure.
Yeah, she totally received. Like she at one point was like wanting, like pulling him up to her, and he's like, "No, you will take this because I want you to know that you are mine, and I choose you, and I'm putting you on the throne, and I want you." And you know, Cat can just be dead for all I care.
And then that thing afterwards where he has that moment where he like is really fighting that desire to do anything more with her because he wants to show her that he doesn't need to have sex. Like it's her pleasure is enough. Like he doesn't need to claim her afterwards. He doesn't need to, you know,
No.
they don't need to have sex for him to be in love with her. His love is separate from his desire in a way. You know, it's like he's not. He doesn't have to be kind of held down by that, or like, you know, it's not, it
Yeah.
doesn't have a leash kind of thing. And she's like, I know, but like I actually want it, so like you should definitely come over here and do it because like um
Yeah, she says, "You can't possibly think I'm going to let you get me off twice, let alone whatever the fuck that last time was, and not dot dot dot." And he says that's exactly what's happening. Whilst you know the pain, the engorgement in his leathers has to look. It looks painful. I love when they say it looks painful.
it's like the erection is so intense that it is hurting him. Like there is so much energy going into his throbbing member, you know, like it's just like I mean it is great, but also I do remember reading a little I think we spoke about this, but I do feel like occasionally in this book the language becomes a little bit too modern day slang. They sound a little young. I don't know. It's just, you know, it's this whole like they've just had this like kind of huge scene, and then she's just like, oh, you know, you can't just get me off. But it just sounds like this real like I don't know. You know, I didn't think that at the time, obviously, when I was reading it. But afterwards, like, there's little moments I think where I'm just like, a weird blending of this world and then I guess our current
Yeah.
way of talking. And I don't think it often. Like,
What should it be then? Should it be more like proper English, like Bridgerton or something? Like what should it be?
maybe just like less like colloquial or something. Like, I don't know. Like, I just can't imagine. I guess it's like they don't talk about.
If I just had Xaden go down on me and make me come 3 times, my language is just going to be very basic. Like my brain's just exploded.
Sure.
My cells have shattered. I'm going to just be like I'm just going to be one word.
You come here now.
But even in this, we see him. Yeah, he's like, I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. You still didn't quite, trust me fully. Blah blah. And she's just like, mate, oh, you definitely should have. It was quite possibly the hottest moment of my entire life. You ever want to bring me to my knees or win an argument? That's a sure bet. Yeah. Straight up, mate. Straight up. So hopefully he then went off and, relieved himself, as they often do in these books, with a cold shower.
Oh, that's right. I mean, he probably just focused on some war strategy. Brought him right back down to reality.
But he says, and he also says in there, you're the first and only woman I've ever loved. Cat was nothing. So, yeah, it's a great one. Very popular scene, that one. And there's some thoughts about, at some point he'll be saying, my queen, my throne, my queen, blah, blah, which is awesome. How do you move on from there? I don't even know. What happened next?
Well, I think after that, it all starts to become a bit more serious. Like, after that,
and so
we start to get into there's issues with the wards because the Griffin Riders still have their powers, so the wards are not keeping out
Yeah.
anything.
She
You know,
tries to
so
raise them. She tries to raise the wards and fail.
yeah. And then the general reaches out. So General Melgren, the one that own his dragon's the only one that is bigger than Tarn. He reaches out because they're being attacked and says, or they're going to be attacked, and he says, we need the rebellion to come and help us.
Yeah.
And so then there's this meeting where Melgren and the general, you know, it's so now we're starting to discuss like proper war strategy, and we're getting all the sides to come together, and people are starting to be like showing their loyalty or their like long held trust issues. Like, we shouldn't help these guys because they've abandoned us. You know, they didn't believe us about this, blah, 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 blah. So that's all kind of happening. And then it starts to go into that strategy of like people are placing, you know, different people at different points around where to go, who to protect, who's going to be attacked, how they're protect. It's the battle scene. Like, it all builds up to the big battle scene at the end. And then the fights begin. So like the Venom and the Wyvern fly in. So that's how it ends, with that big battle scene. With a lot happening. A lot happens in that battle.
So
like,
much.
even though I felt like the actual writing of that battle, like I remember reading it, and it felt like in my head that it took like 3 minutes to read. Like, it just, you know, I was so immersed in it, and I was just like, okay, this is happening, and then this happening, and then, you know, obviously we're going to try and stop this happening, and then, but people are going to die because like, now there's Wyvern and Venom, and they're not prepared, and the ward stone hasn't been activated yet, and
so they, you know, and she's off trying to still figure out how to bloody raise the ward. So, you know, they're still trying to do all this like reading and understanding, because what they thought was they needed the 7 riders,
and then they all needed to touch the stone and imbue it with their signet power.
Yeah, and so what we also now
start
to discover is that it's actually the dragons. They need the flame, right? The iron flame.
Yes, because Dane retranslated it again. So Dane's still committed to this project because he knows how much it means with Violet. She is like, the answer is in this book. Like, this is the answer. How can we not be understanding it? Like, I don't know what I'm missing. And I think Dane was like, it's actually this word can also mean this.
Yes.
And it was like this tiny twist. And then it's like the 7 most powerful, and we've said beings. And he's like, it's actually like, what's more powerful than a human is a dragon, or something like that. It's like the 7 dragons. One has to go get the dragons to all come, and the 7th is Andana, right? Because there's 7 types of dragons.
Yes, she's this mystical 7th dragon. That because along the whole story, every time Violet would see her you know, her scales were slightly different. They were reddish, or they were green at the start, and they were turning reddish, and so I was onto that one. I was like, okay, I think she's going to be a completely different type of dragon. And she says that she had waited to hatch on Violet's 18th birthday. She waited 500 years to hatch, or something like that. So, you know, you get this sense of Violet is very, very important and special, and was very, very much the chosen one. I know all the dragons choose their riders, but and Dana waited a long time, so they needed her power, her fire.
There's 2 word stones, and so they had to choose one to raise because they couldn't raise both. They couldn't raise them at the same time. So they chose to raise the one at Basquiat to save the people, and also because that's where the dragon's hatchling ground was. So they needed to protect the dragons. So that meant that Aretia would be without protection. So they were basically like, the rebellion people would not. And so anyway, they had to make that decision. Violet chose to protect the dragons and the people, and then went there with the dragons to do it, and then didn't have enough power, and then she had to, her mum had to step in. Isn't that what they needed? Another, so it was the dragons, and then they still needed.
Yeah, they had to drain the power from Captain Marengale to put into the Wardstone. Yeah. that was big. That was big and
Yes.
emotional. Like she, again, it backs up what she'd said previously. Like, I will do anything to save my children. And she did. She lost her life. And Violet had to witness that and watch that happening.
Yeah, so the general died there, which I was not expecting. I guess it's like by this stage, you're kind of in that battle energy where like just lots of people are dying and being injured, and you're a bit kind of like, oh yeah, like someone else died. Oh yeah, another thing is thwarted. Oh, more Griffin's dying. Oh, this blah blah blah, and suddenly you're like, what? Her mum just died. And
Yeah.
then you feel like there's all this. I didn't expect to be that sad. I feel like I hadn't really warmed to the general throughout the book. I was a bit kind of like, she's hard to love. I know that she's probably motivated by love for her children, but she doesn't show it in a way that I connect with, and but I was surprised at how sad I felt. Like the way it was written really made me feel really sad about her death.
Yeah. I was very sad. I connected to her very early on in this book. I didn't love her in Fourth Wing, but I also in Fourth Wing knew that there was other motives. Like I just knew that there was a reason she would be doing that, because I hate to believe that any mother would just kill off her children. So yeah, that was a really powerful scene. But you're right. This last sort of 200 pages, just so much happening. I'm even flicking through now going, oh, that's right. And I remember finishing it saying to you, I need to reread that last bit again. Like there's so much that happens in there, so much that I've probably missed.
Yeah. And also just like the pace of that writing, because you're writing like battle writing, like end of a book writing, it's just like the culmination of so many threads, reveals, twists and turns. And also like at this stage, to give Violet protection so she could do all this, Xadens out there literally just battling the Venom one-on-one. And then we haven't mentioned, but through this whole book, Violet's been having these dreams where she dreams that she's having this conversation with the super powerful, the head Venom, who's saying, you will give in to me, like you will do this for the people you love. You will do this.
If he wants it.
You will come with me. Like you are the one I want. And she's like, oh my God, is that going to happen? Am I going to see him? Is this a prophecy in my head? Like, is he planting seeds? What's happening? And then we realize that it's actually like not her that the dream is in relation to, because as Xaden's out there fighting the head of the Venom, the super sage, he isn't going to win, and he's happy to die for Violet. He's like, I will do this because this is what, but like also if he dies, she dies and the dragons die. Like it's not just him dying, this whole cascade effect, but he ends up giving himself to the Venom. And so like the battle ends, she goes to meet him, he turns around and he's got red rimmed eyes and he's like, I am now Venom.
Yeah.
Which is the big where people, the videos of people like throwing the book across the room and they're like, no, this is not happening.
Yeah. Pretty much.
How did you feel about it? Yeah, how did you feel?
I still don't know how I feel about it. I do feel like I want to go back and reread it all again, because I still don't, maybe you can help me. I still don't quite grasp. Okay, so I don't grasp why he did it, and I don't know if he'd been Venom a lot. Some people are saying he's been Venom for a while. Or did it happen just there on the battleground right at the end? What do you think about that? Because I know you go back and reread. I haven't had a chance to reread.
When I read it, I definitely thought that it happened then. It was like a trade. He said like, you will become one of us and I will end this battle. I will spare Violet. I will not kill other people. Like, because essentially by getting Xaden, he gets Violet. And he gets those dragons, because he knows they're all bonded. There are theories that he did turn earlier and that's why she was having the dreams. And also there's a couple of moments, I think, where people pulled out like he had red eyes or he looked really tired or he wouldn't look her in the eye. But I mean, I feel like they didn't. I never noticed anything going through where I thought, oh, he's got red eyes,
Why
or like,
wouldn't why wouldn't he just kill her then though? Or take her or whatever they want to do with her? What
well, yeah. But I think by turning venom, it just turns you into this. It means you can channel power through the earth. It doesn't necessarily mean, and you. There's stages of like I think he's just begun, and then by the end is when. So he's got red rimmed eyes, whereas like when you're like when you're deep like or you've channeled a lot of energy, like I guess you're out of balance with the earth because you're pulling all this energy that you shouldn't have access to is when you start to get those massive
okay.
like red veins that all
Yeah.
bleed out and you start to look shattered because essentially the power starts to eat you from within is how they described it at one point, I think. And
Okay.
so he decided to save people and also because Jack Barlow is also venom. I feel like we didn't talk about that either. And but he's been managed. His condition is being managed by Nolan, the healer. And so, and then we see some correspondence between General Sorengale asking, like, can we cure this? No, we can only manage it. We can keep it in check or something. So, like,
Gotcha.
Jack, but sort of Jack at the end is, is starting to go a little bit more into the evil energy. He's like, I think, doesn't Jack kill his own dragon? I feel like I read that to show that he didn't need it. Like,
Yeah.
or he left his dragon there. Like his dragon got crushed by rocks or something. Anyway, and so he's like, I don't need it. I draw the power from
Yeah.
that, and that's kind of the cliffhanger it all gets ended on with Xaden going like, how do I control this? We're all reeling from Xaden being a venom. The mums died. The battle has just been paused essentially. Like no one really won. One of the word stones is up. The other one isn't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unfinished threads, and I feel like when I read it, because I believe so strongly that they are endgame, Violet and Xaden, I didn't feel worried. Like I was just like, oh no, this is bad. But I wasn't like,
Yes.
oh my god, this is devastating.
Same.
This is the end of the relationship. He's gonna die. She's gonna have to kill him. He's gonna try and kill her. Blah blah blah. I was like, no. Like, and then I was like, instantly, like, book 3 will be about him managing it, and like book 4, he'll have to take himself away because he won't be able to protect her because he's, and she'll be trying to with her scribe mind. She will try and find the answer, and she'll go searching for it. And there'll also be like a romance in there, so like a comfort romance because she'll be so distraught over Xaden, and she's this little side thing with someone. Could be Dane, could be Arik the king.
Because I feel like
Another king, Xaden's a king, this is Arik's a king, there's a little king trilogy, like triangle happening here. And then eventually in book 5, back together.
Okay, there you go. That's
my current theory.
Badger's predictions. Okay, that's good. That's helped my brain just slot a couple more things in because I was like, why isn't he just turning around and killing her? But there are stages of venomism that he has to go through. Yeah, I was the same. I was like, oh, that's really shit. And it was a great ending. Loved it. Great ending. But I also, like you, was like, okay, I do know that there's more books. So we'll be fine. It'll be fine. She'll be fine. He'll be fine. We'll be fine. And, oh, gosh, well, let's see. Let's see if we'll be fine in a year's time when Rebecca, a year or plus probably, Rebecca actually writes it. Where's she going to go? And will she be influenced by the reaction from this one? Who knows? Who knows? We will see. But that was fun. Oh, it's a great book. It's one of my top picks for 2023. If you haven't listened to that episode, go and have a listen. Loved it. Loved it. Loved reliving it with you, Madge. This is why I love doing these episodes. Makes me want to go reread it again.
I feel like we've covered everything.
Right. Well, I mean, the classic line from this book is my house, my chair, my woman. Do we just go with that as our line for this episode? Can I top it?
I mean, there's lots of other good lines, but there's not a line that is just so like I mean, I've got this line which is kind of in line with the like hot throne energy, which I thought I'd just read.
Go. Do it.
And Xaden said, I want the woman I fell for. It kills me every time I have to keep my hands off you. Every night I lie awake next to you, both blessed and damned with the memory of how hot, how wet, how fucking perfect you feel when I'm losing myself in you. To go. I think it sits nicely alongside the throne line.
Little subline. Love it. So much fun. All right. Well, we hope you guys loved this episode and felt like you were having a bit of a combo with some people that get it and understand the obsession. So we would love to hear, as always, in the comments, in your reviews, what you're loving about this series, what were your favourite parts, and what parts you kind of laughed along with us or fist pumped with us as you were listening to this episode. So we'd love your interaction. And we're going to love you and leave you. Thanks, Matt.
Yep. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.
See you, Callie.